UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Imavov. We got our most popular video to date last week. Appreciate everyone who watched that. We're going to keep the momentum going here with this Louisville card. Let's get right into it. We got a matchup between Rayanne Santos and Puja Tomar to lead off the card here. Puja is the first Indian female fighter, to my knowledge, in UFC history. She's coming off of 4 finishes in a row, so she's got a bit of momentum on her side. The last time she was facing high-level MMA competition, though, was in one championship, and she went 1-3 in that promotion. Rayanne Santos, don't know too much about her. She had a close loss to Talita Alenkar in her debut. But I think she's still the more proven of these two, a bit more experienced as well. I think she's going to win a submission victory here. I just expect her to have much better grappling. I think she's going to be quite a bit bigger as well. Next fight on the card is Cody Stamann taking on Taylor Lapilus. Lapilus is 1-1 in his second UFC stint. He had another brief stint in the past. He beat Caleb Loughran in his first fight back in the UFC, then most recently lost to one of the Basharat brothers. He's, solid fighter. He's got a lot of fights under his belt. He's shown that he can be taken down late in fights, though, which I think is going to play into Cody Stamann's hands here. Stamann's super tough, and he lands takedowns late in fights. I think he's got a lot of juice sometimes at the end of fights, where I think Taylor Lapilus is going to be sort of slowing down a bit. We're taking Stamann to win a decision. He's a big puncher. I think he's going to put some damage on Taylor Lapilus and win it on the cards. Next fight up, it is Eduarda Moura taking on Denise Gomes. Moura is 10-0 in her MMA career. She dominated Conejo Ruiz in her UFC debut. She was so much bigger than Conejo Ruiz, though. There's a stark difference. I don't think we're going to see that big of a size advantage here, although she should be a bit taller than Denise Gomes. Definitely, I think the grappling of Moura could be an issue, but I really like Gomes' aggressiveness. I can't help but think about her, what she accomplished versus Bruna Brazil and Yasmin Yargi, landing 2 pretty vicious KOs versus them too. She's only 26, so she's presumably getting better every day, and she has more UFC experience here. I think she's going to pull off the upset here and win by KO, handing Moura her first professional loss. Next fight is John Castaneda versus Daniel Marcos. Marcos is an undefeated 15-0 fighter. He's coming off of a very close decision win versus Davy Grant, a fight that I definitely thought he lost. And I think Castaneda is a bit better than Davy Grant. I think if you're losing those close decisions, Castaneda is, I think, a bit more athletic, more explosive. If Daniel Marcos gets hit by the same shots that Davy Grant popped him with, I think the consequences are going to be even more drastic versus a guy like John Castaneda. Castaneda looked really good versus Kyung-Ho Kang, so I think he wins a decision here versus Daniel Marcos. Next up is Andrea Lee taking on Montana De La Rosa. Tough fight to really provide a prediction on. Andrea Lee's a slight favorite here, and she had the more recent win of the two, even though that was all the way back in November of 21. So we're going to go with Andrea Lee by decision. Not going to spend too much time on it. It's just a tough one to call, and I really feel like there's not many implications with this matchup here anyway. Next up is Brad Katona taking on Jesse Butler. Katona should realistically roll through Butler here. Butler did get KO'd by Jim Miller in his debut pretty much immediately. Katona is the far more experienced guy here. I think he's going to be the more explosive athlete. I think Katona finds a pretty quick finish here as well. We're flying through these, but we have a really interesting matchup up next between Charles Radtke and Carlos Prates. Prates is on a 7-fight KO streak. Super tall guy, long for the division. He's a bit of a sniper, and it doesn't take much from him to find a KO. He did get a KO in his last fight, in his UFC debut versus Trevin Giles. Honestly, up until he found that shot to put Trevin Giles away, I wasn't the most impressed with him, but it doesn't take much from Prates, because he's just so accurate and so powerful. He's taking on Charles Radtke, who's a really tough opponent. He surprised me a lot when he ran through Gilbert Urbina. I thought, man, this guy, he should have made it look a bit easier versus Blood Diamond. I don't really know what to expect out of this guy. Well, he absolutely demolished Gilbert Urbina. Super powerful striker. And he was able to overcome a reach advantage in that fight. He's going to have a reach disadvantage, rather. He's going to have a disadvantage in the reach here as well, but I think he'll find a way to navigate in. And Carlos Prates, he's been in a lot of wars. He's gotten knocked out a couple times, whereas Radtke, I think he's been KO'd once, but that was really early on in his career. I think he's going to have the better chin, and he's super powerful. I think he finds his way inside and lands a devastating shot and wins this one by KO. Next up is a lightweight fight between Thiago Moises and Ludovit Klein. Moises' grappling always could present a big issue for his opponents. Klein, I think, is, he's kind of built like a fire hydrant. He's a short guy. I think he's going to be a tough guy to take down. And I really like what I've been seeing out of him as of late. He beat Ignacio Bahamondes really impressively, where giving up, so much size in that matchup. I think he can keep this fight landing long enough to land the bigger shots and go up on the cards. I'm taking Klein by decision. Moises has just kind of been up and down as of late. I feel like he's taking quite a bit of damage, so I'm liking Klein in this one. Next up is a matchup between Miguel Baeza and Puna Soriano. Baeza looks to be the bigger guy here, despite Puna coming down from middleweight. Puna never really should have been a middleweight. He was way smaller than all of his opponents. But he kind of feels like one of these guys who's a bit of a tweener, could probably benefit from like a 175-pound weight division. So we'll see how much the weight cut takes out of him here. I definitely think it's a net positive move for Puna. I think he's better off being a bit more tired than going up against guys who are just dwarf him in size. Baez is coming off of a 2-year layoff. The only sort of competition he's had is a competitive grappling match where he got a submission win. I think Baeza finds a finish here. He's taking that time to rest and recharge. He's explosive in his own right, and I think he's actually going to be the bigger guy in there. I think can win it on the feet, or he can win it on the ground. He's just got more ways to win here, so we're taking him by finish. Next up is Julian Marquez taking on Zachary Reese. Reese is, I want to say he's more of a grappler. There's not a lot of tape on him because all of his wins have come by round 1 KO. Got slam finished by Cody Brundage in his debut most recently. Pretty devastating. Got taken down, and the fight was pretty much over there once he got crazy with the, I forget if it was an armbar or a triangle. Julian Marquez seems like a really tough matchup for the guy in Zachary Reese, who's only had, I think, 7 pro fights. It should be really interesting. I'm going to side with Marquez. I just think he's a bit more experienced. I like his aggressive approach. And Reese, I don't know, it seems like he sort of went a little too quick, rose a bit too quickly. He should have gotten more fights under his belt, and now I think he's in this kind of difficult situation of not having a lot of octagon time and taking on more experienced guys who are, professional athletes. So Marquez by KO is going to be the pick here. We're staying in the middleweight division for a fight between Bruno Ferreira and Dustin Stoltzfus. In the main card, Ferreira has quickly become one of my favorite fighters, definitely in the division. He's super powerful, and he definitely won me over after that RoboCop KO fight that I took him as an underdog in, and he certainly delivered. He's not the tallest guy, but he's really thick, and I think that's going to help him in this Stoltzfus matchup, because Stoltzfus is definitely going to want to take him down. He can't play around on the feet with this guy, because I think the power difference is going to be pretty significant. He's going to be a tough guy to take down, and if Stoltzfus tries to sell out for these takedowns, he's going to gas out really quick, which I think is going to help Ferreira a lot. Ferreira's got that momentum. He's coming off of a round 1 KO, I'm pretty sure. I think he keeps it rolling with another KO win here versus Dustin Stoltzfus. Next up, it is Raul Rosas Jr. taking on Ricky Turcios. This is it's so hard to call these Raul Rosas fights because he's so young. He is a part of this, new generation of MMA fighters who started super young and, started fighting professionally even super young. Yes, those guys have been around for a while, but I think it's just MMA is in such a different place now than it was in even, 5-10 years ago, especially just in, among some of the other popular sports, especially in Mexico, or actually, Rosas, where is he from? Yeah, he's from Mexico, I believe, if not like Texas. But especially in some of, places like that where MMA is just starting to really take off. So I think that's going to benefit him a bit in sort of the age disparity here. Turcios is a really, tough, strange fighter to come up against. So it's going to be tough for Raul, I think, to really grab a hold of him. But I think if they get in some of these grappling scrambles, Rosas, I think, is just going to be a bit more skilled and going to be able to, catch Turcios in a tough position, like hop on his back. So I see that happening, and Rosas finding a submission in this fight here. So Rosas by submission is the pick. Next up, we have our co-main event. It is a light heavyweight matchup between Dominic Reyes and Dustin Jacoby. Reyes, let's face it, has been pretty down bad since his controversial loss to John Jones. Been KO'd 3 times in a row to Jan Blachowicz, Yuri, and Ryan Spann. Reyes obviously showed a lot of promise, and when he was taking on John Jones, I think he was 12-0 at the time of taking on John Jones. So it's really tough to see sort of where his career has taken him since. For what it's worth, he had another shot at the title versus Jan Blachowicz. So he had a chance to sort of redeem that loss, and the power of Jan was just too much, and that's kind of been the story these past 3 fights. He's just a bit chinny, and some of these guys have been fighting have ridiculous power. Dustin Jacoby, I think, is in a lower tier compared to these guys in terms of punching power. But when it comes to striking ability, he definitely has a lot of technique, and he's a kickboxing guy. And although he doesn't have sort of the KO power of the guys that he's been facing, I think he sort of makes up for that with his accuracy and skill. It's a 5-round fight, so I think that is to Reyes' advantage. I think if he can make it dirty, and then especially later in the fight when some of that technique starts to go and both guys are tired, Reyes, I think he showed a lot of grit in those championship rounds versus John Jones that I think could help him make it interesting if it makes it that long. But we're siding with Dustin Jacoby's accuracy here, and just given the damage we've seen Dominic Reyes take in his past 3 fights. Dustin Jacoby got hurt really bad versus Alonzo Menafield, but he didn't go out, and I don't think Reyes is the puncher that Menafield is. We're taking Jacoby by KO. I think he's just going to put some combinations together, and Reyes is just taking a lot of damage, and I don't know how much it'll really take from Dustin Jacoby to put him out. Finally, we have our main event, Jared Cannonier taking on Nasruddin Imavov. Really interesting middleweight matchup. These guys Imavov's looking up at the rankings. Cannonier, I think, is looking down a little bit. Props to Cannonier for taking this fight. I think he could have gotten away with, saying give me the number 1 or number 2 guy. But here he is in a main event. Imavov did dominate Roman Dolidze in a main event in February. This is his 3rd main event, interestingly enough. Imavov, I think he's solid. He's got good size and pretty clean striking. And he's a tough guy to take down. He's got that Dagestani background, but he's sort of that weird mutant breed of them who like striking. Although I definitely think those guys tend to be a bit worse than the pure grapplers. But I think Cannonier is a tough matchup for him. We saw him take apart Dolidze, who's a powerful striker, but Dolidze doesn't have near the striking ability of Jerry Cannonier, who's just super. Obviously, he's super experienced. He's 40 years old, but I feel like that rare build of the guys who lose a bunch of weight and just get super jacked. I think those guys are just, I don't know, they might be immortal. This guy, Cannonier, he's shown zero sign of really slowing down. He's almost always gotten better. And we even saw, Adesanya really be careful with Cannonier because he knew how skilled and powerful he is. Imavov, I could see him being slightly the fresher guy late in the fight, but man, I don't think he's, I think he's going to take a beating in this one. We saw Strickland really put it on him. I said in that matchup that Strickland was going to be too much, and I think again here Cannonier is going to be too much for Imavov, and definitely, if these two trade punches, Cannonier is going to be landing the harder shots. I'm certain of it. So we're taking Cannonier to win by decision here. I think Imavov is going to be tough to put away, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if we go to the end of this fight and one guy looks like he just went through a war, and the other guy, his face is pretty much untouched. So Cannonier by decision is the pick here. Thank you all for watching, and let's keep this thing rolling. Like and subscribe if you would like to. We'll be back at it on the next card. You know how it is. So that is the Phone Home MMA breakdown. Peace.